Happy Royal Rumble Saturday, folks, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for January 28th, 2022. I'm Graham Jason Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying your Royal Rumble weekend so far. Trying to sneak this in before the Rumble tonight in mere hours away from the show. Not an overly eventful episode of SmackDown on Friday, and from a go-home show standpoint, definitely not the strongest effort as far as building up the show for Saturday night. But we did have the return of one notable name in the SmackDown women's division, which kicked off the show, which we'll get to in a moment. But overall, I thought it was just another ho-hum edition of SmackDown. Not really doing the strongest job of getting people, I would say, more excited for the pay-per-view on Saturday. At least any more excited than they already were for the Rumble, which I think is kind of impossible at this point when it comes to that pay-per-view. But really, just a decent show. I thought the opening segment was fine. The Naomi Sonia stuff was decent, and those were kind of among the highlights, as well as the final face-off between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins at the end of the show, which we'll get all into right here, right now. So to start the show, we get the SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair out there, kind of boasting about having won a Rumble before 2 years ago. Hopefully never again. Definitely not this year. But, you know, she was out there bragging about being better than all the competition and all the other names that she'll throw out of the match. Out came Shayna Baszler, to new music, mind you. New music. They gave her new music for absolutely no reason. But the only other reason being I can think of that they want to kind of slowly phase out the CFO stuff. I mean, Ricochet got new music recently. It sucks. They're kind of getting rid of all the old CFO songs, which is weird to me at this point. If she's had it for so long, if she's had it up to this point, why not? You know, why change it now? But anyway, she comes out to new music that absolutely sucks, followed by Aaliyah, Natalya, Shotzi, and finally, Sasha Banks making her return for the first time to SmackDown since, I think, late last year was the last time we saw her on WWE TV. I think maybe the last time we saw her, I believe, was when she had teamed up with Tony against Shotzi and Charlotte back in mid-December. I think it was December 17th, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think she was on SmackDown after that. She got hurt in late December. They were reporting in early January that she'd be out for about 6 weeks. Clearly, it was either she came back ahead of schedule or they just exaggerated the injury to make it seem like a bigger deal when she did come back. Why you would bring her back right before the Rumble and not in the match itself, I don't know. I mean, we're literally hours away at this point, but last night, even 24 hours out from the pay-per-view, why wouldn't you wait until Saturday to bring back Sasha? Do they have another surprise in mind, another name coming back? Who knows? They already announced a slew of other notable names for the women, but maybe they just want to add as much intrigue and interest into the show as possible. Maybe it did sell some last-minute pay-per-view buys for fans of Sasha Banks that didn't think she'd be there, and I mean, now immediately she becomes a top favorite to win the whole thing. So maybe it succeeded in that respect. The segment was pretty paint by numbers with everyone kind of making Royal Rumble proclamations and vowing to win the whole thing and blah, blah, blah. But again, like I said, I think Sasha, in coming out on this show and entering herself into the Rumble on Saturday for the women, immediately becomes a top frontrunner to win the whole thing. I'm sticking with my pick regardless of what I've seen, read, and heard. I'm sticking with Bianca Belair as my winner of the Women's Royal Rumble this year. 2 years in a row, which I wouldn't be upset with at all. At least with the Brock one, I would be more, not disappointed, I'm predicting that, but I would be more like, come on, man. I mean, there's other ways of setting up Brock and Roman than having Brock win the Rumble, but there are pros and cons to it. As far as Sasha goes, though, it seems like all systems are a go as far as Sasha and Charlotte at WrestleMania 38 for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So they probably set it up on Sunday. Even if Sasha doesn't win the Rumble, she can always eliminate Charlotte and set up the match that way. So a nice way to open the show. I will give them that. The segment itself wasn't great, but we did get our first tease for Sasha and Charlotte come WrestleMania, which at this point I'm pretty much just expecting. And they always work well together. And it's been long enough since they last feuded one-on-one, and now Sasha's back to being a babyface, although I think she's a natural heel. It's a marquee match. It's definitely a marquee match. Probably not, and definitely not the main event of WrestleMania, but it should be a quality match nonetheless, assuming it does. They do indeed go in that direction. Sheamus and Ridge Holland teaming up against Cesaro and Ricochet in a rematch from the Day 1 pre-show. Quality contest here, nice entertaining action, which was expected given everyone involved. Nothing too out of the ordinary, though. Sheamus and Ridge just continue to rack up victories. Cesaro and Ricochet cannot win a match to save their fucking lives. I mean, neither of them, it's sad. At last glance, I think Ricochet is in the Men's Royal Rumble tonight. I don't think Cesaro is, or at least announced or advertised for it, which, I mean, if you're putting fucking Madcap Moss and all these other goofs from Raw that have no business being in the Rumble, I mean, how are they in it but not Cesaro? Like a Dolph at this point, I guess, has been around for long enough. But him and Bobby Roode, I like Bobby Roode, but just so beyond irrelevant. I guess Cesaro is as well, but the guy was in the midst of the biggest push of his career just a year ago, and now he can't even make the Rumble. I understand not putting him in Money in the Bank last year, but God forbid the guy can't even make the fucking Rumble. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing. They lost here. Sheamus and Ridge continue to rack up victories, like I said. I assume they were just protecting Sheamus until he eventually vies for the Intercontinental Championship, which will hopefully be soon. But I assume that's why they're giving him so many wins right now. Naomi and Sonia was advertised for the show, and shockingly, much to our surprise, everyone's surprise, they actually delivered on the match. They didn't have any interference, no bullshit. Sonya talked to the referee, something Spengler, I forgot his name. Rudy Spengler. I think it was the guy that was the referee from TNA. But she tried to talk to him before the match and say, listen, I don't care what you tell me, I'm going to call this thing down the middle. And he did. It wasn't like he cheated Sonya out of a win here. He did run away after making the 3 count for Naomi. But that wasn't because he fucked Sonya out of a win here. It was because he didn't want to deal with the wrath of Sonya Deville. Because she was like, oh, I evaluate your performance, including my matches, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. So that was basically what happened, or at least didn't happen, and that we didn't get any bullshit or shenanigans or interference, which I was pleasantly surprised by. They rang the bell. They actually got physical, which, again, surprised me. I thought we were getting another non-angle. Because nothing we have seen up to this point has made me think that we're getting the match now on the fucking go-home show before the Royal Rumble. I mean, why wouldn't they have done this at day one? Why wouldn't they have done this at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view itself? They got another pay-per-view coming up in Saudi Arabia in a couple weeks. Why not do it there? Why not save it for WrestleMania at this point? It's been going on long enough. I'm not saying they should stretch it out till Mania. They've pretty much done everything under the sun as far as stretching the storyline out for as long as possible. I understand that, aspect of it. But I don't know why you would give this away on a go-home show and then have Naomi win clean. I'm happy she won clean. That, again, surprised me. No more bullshit or whatever. But they clearly are still feuding because they're both set for the Women's Rumble on Sunday. We found out from Sonya herself afterward. Naomi said she's in it. Sonya said, well, you're going to have to deal with me. And it's like, okay, she just did deal with you and she beat you clean. I felt like it was ass backwards booking, where it was like, if you want to get your hands on me, you're going to have to face me in the Royal Rumble match. Whereas she said that after already having lost to Naomi clean. So that was a very weird, questionable call to me. It was a good match, though. Sonya has not wrestled a match, a formal singles match, or any match at all, really, since SummerSlam 2020, when she lost to Mandy Rose in that whole loser leaves WWE match. I don't think they ever actually explained why Sonya came back to the company in storyline, why she was given an authority figure position, and why she was able to get away with everything that she did, during the whole feud with Naomi. But they'll both be in the Rumble on Sunday. Maybe they eliminate each other. Maybe they set up another match on TV. I just was a little surprised they would do such a clean win already this early. No, I don't say this early. They've been feuding for 5 months. But if this wasn't the payoff, then I'm not really sure what more you can do from here. Sami Zayn hosted another In Zayn, segment on the show. No Johnny Knoxville, but he did host a podcast, so no crazy stuff from Sami Zayn this week or attempted craziness. It was him taking a pretty straightforward approach and doing what we're doing right now and hosting a podcast. Unfortunately, I would say, it would be a great way to fill out the second hour, jokingly, obviously. But I would never listen to an hour-long podcast, I don't think, between Sami Zayn and Jinder Mahal. Jinder seems like a nice guy. I've met him, interviewed him. Nice guy. Hour-long podcast on SmackDown with Jinder Mahal, not exactly my cup of tea. And Shanky, too. Shanky was there as well. They actually promoted Jackass in the new movie, which is to be expected. I assume the whole point of that Johnny Knoxville participation, his participation in the Rumble, is WWE promoting his movie, which I think comes out maybe it is next week. It might be next Friday. But anyway, so that went on for a little bit. Nakamura interrupts, Rick Boogs interrupts. They come out for a tag team match with Mahal and Shanky. Nakamura and Boogs win. Nakamura didn't pick up the win for his team, but I assume if he wasn't cleared, then he wouldn't be in the match. Because we heard from Boogs, not on TV, but I think in an interview with Corey Graves on After the Bell or somewhere else, he had mentioned that Nakamura is hurt right now with a hand injury. And that's why he hasn't been in action. That's why he hasn't defended the Intercontinental Championship. That's why they haven't done that match yet. So that would make sense. But they got to hurry up and get to it. If Nakamura is indeed cleared, they got to just get it over with at this point. Nakamura, Zayn, I know they've been building it up for a month now, but it's not even a pay-per-view worthy match. I just want that belt off of Nakamura. If him and Boogs are going to be in the tag team division, take the fucking Intercontinental Championship off the guy. It's a complete waste. Just put it on Sheamus or Cesaro or someone like that. That, to me, would make way more sense. Speaking of tag team action, we also had the New Day, represented by Big E and Kofi Kingston, taking on Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss last week on SmackDown, or actually 2 weeks ago. Madcap Moss beat Kofi Kingston one-on-one. Kingston avenged the loss last week on SmackDown with some help from Big E, kind of counteracting the interference from Happy Corbin at ringside. And then we got the tag team match this week. Stemming from reports, I don't know how accurate this is as of this recording. I've kind of tried to stay off of social media and the dirt sheets and whatever to avoid any potential Royal Rumble spoilers. But it looks like Big E might be back on the blue brand, officially. Based off of comments that were made on the show, on WWE.com, backstage exclusive videos, and also in tweets and stuff by WWE themselves. The last time I checked this morning, Big E was not on the SmackDown roster page. But if he ends up getting moved there full time, I can't say I'm a fan. You might be asking, what more do you do with him on Raw? He just wrapped up a WWE Championship run. Yeah, I mean, I know he lost. He got pinned by Brock at day one. And people keep saying, he'll win the Rumble, and maybe he will. I honestly don't think if they really saw Big E as this top-tier WWE World Champion talent for more than a couple of months, and he had a good reign, I thought, could have been much better, then I feel like they would have been booking him a little bit differently coming out of the day one pay-per-view than having him just go back to being business as usual. He did cut a great promo, I think either the Raw after he lost the championship or a week and a half later when he faced Rollins on Raw. But really, they haven't done a hell of a whole lot with him since he dropped the championship. He's back on SmackDown now for a brief period, and they try to explain that away by saying, it's Royal Rumble season. People show up wherever they want, which isn't true. We're not getting a lot of SmackDown stars on Raw, and they're only doing it with SmackDown because the SmackDown talent depth chart right now is in fucking shambles because they have no stars. Again, I just can't say I'm a fan of putting Big E back on SmackDown already. He literally just moved to Raw for the first time in 5 years, back in October. So they split up the New Day in 2020. They kept them separated last year by having them swap shows. Big E was the WWE champion, so him going to Raw made sense. But it's just because his reign is over, you got to put him back on SmackDown. I guess they can revisit the Roman Reigns feud, if you can even really call it. They didn't really feud going into Survivor Series, but you can always revisit that and do that match at some point. Beyond that, though, I don't really know what more you do with him on SmackDown. I guess you got him away from Apollo Crews, who was also on Raw but barely used. But, he already held the Intercontinental Championship. What other heel? Him and fucking Happy Corbin? No thanks. They already had a match. They had a match at SummerSlam last year. They already had a little mini feud in the summer of last year. I don't really know what more you do with Big E, and also him already being back alongside the rest of the New Day, I feel like it's too soon. If you want to do a one-off for those guys, I get it. But the full-on reunion of having Big E and Kofi back together and then Woods coming back, it's just too soon. We already saw the fucking New Day versus the Usos anyway. So the team of Big E and Kofi going for the championships instead would be stupid. I have no desire to see that. We've already seen that a bunch of times. So hopefully that's not where they're going with this. I would rather Big E stay on Raw. If you really want to move someone from Raw to SmackDown, give SmackDown AJ Styles. That would be the guy to have switch shows. He is doing a whole lot of nothing right now on Raw. Not that Big E was, but at least AJ Styles, he hasn't been on SmackDown in a good year, almost 2 years. He didn't just move to Raw. He's not facing anyone on Raw right now as far as Rollins or Lashley, although those are fresh feuds. At least on SmackDown, him and Sheamus have never really had a formal feud before. Him and Corbin feuded about 5 years ago, but, him and Roman feuded 6 years ago over the WWE Championship. You can always revisit that. And there's other people on SmackDown as well. So, honestly, I would rather they move AJ before they move Big E. I feel like Big E already going back to SmackDown. Again, him and Sheamus, we already saw that too. Him and Corbin, Him and Roman, they've already done it, not as a full-fledged feud. But just not a big fan of that if that is indeed the case. I guess we'll find out in the coming days, and if he's not on Raw this week, and if he's on SmackDown again next week, coming out of the Rumble, then we got our answer. The main event segment on the show saw Roman Reigns and Seth freaking Rollins go face-to-face, and I hate fucking saying freaking, by the way, so we'll probably just stop that. But Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, one final face-off before the Royal Rumble tonight. Good verbal exchange here, once again going down the Shield route, mentioning all the times that Rollins beat Roman to either win a championship or retain a title. Both WWE Championship wins for Rollins came at the hands of Roman Reigns. He beat Roman Reigns. He pinned Roman Reigns. Both times he became WWE Champion. He pinned Brock Lesnar both times he became Universal Champion as well. So Rollins is definitely a threat going into this pay-per-view. I wouldn't say I'm predicting him to win. I don't at all think that. I feel like that'd be silly at this current point in time. If you're this close to WrestleMania, why wouldn't you wait until WrestleMania at the earliest to take the belt off of Roman Reigns, in my opinion? But, yeah, they brought up the Shield and the fact that Rollins was the one that orchestrated the split of the group, and Roman wasn't entirely wrong when he told Rollins, "I hate you," and all this other shit. And I thought Rollins was supposed to be the babyface, but they kind of switched up the dynamic going into the pay-per-view with what they did here on this show. And again, I thought it was a good verbal exchange, some good lines there, and they brought the intensity more than they did 2 or 3 weeks ago when they first faced off on the show. Then I don't know, the whole heel versus heel thing without actually turning anyone is a bit odd. Maybe they do end up turning Rollins, but he definitely did not come across as a babyface in this segment. I will tell you that much right now. So that whole heel versus heel dynamic kind of hinders things. But overall, I thought it was a good way to close out. It was a fairly, again, uneventful show. I liked the closing segment. The New Day versus Corbin and Moss stuff just wasn't really for me. The stuff in the middle with the In Zayn podcast and Mahal, Shanky, Nakamura, and Boogs, I just don't care. Sheamus, Ridge, Cesaro, and Ricochet, more of the same from them. The best 3 parts about the show were, Sasha coming back was a big deal. I really liked the Naomi and Sonya Deville match, and then the final face-off. So, per usual, only 2 or 3 real highlights. The rest of the show was kind of middle of the road, in my opinion. Again, like I said, didn't really get me any more excited for the Royal Rumble more than I already was. But that being said, we're all already excited for the Rumble tonight. We're already as excited as we're going to be for this pay-per-view, so that's all that can really be said. So thank you guys for checking out my review of the January 28th, 2022 edition of Friday Night SmackDown. Again, going up a bit late before the pay-per-view tonight, but I appreciate you guys for taking the time to check out the video anyway, so thanks so much for that. On that note, we'll be back next Saturday with another audio review of Friday Night SmackDown. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the Royal Rumble tonight. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.